Welcome to the GPT podcast. Don't achieve your dreams. It's just
Don't do it.
don't do it. your, your dreams are just dreams.
They're fucking stupid.
I'm your host. They're here too. I don't know. I don't know what to start this. This is weird. We're just gonna keep pushing through. We're gonna talk about stuff. We're gonna talk about life. We might talk about death. We might talk about achieving your dreams. I don't know. I'm just here. We're just doing the podcast. Okay. Once again, I'm a professional. Look at the background.
Hmm.
We want to talk about today. It's, I mean, at this point, we're reaching the end of when people are like really motivated about their New Year's resolutions for fitness, for life. And I was curious to see do you guys have New Year's resolutions? I mean, we're 4 weeks in, so maybe not. But have you noticed anything in terms of you're looking forward to in terms of training or any events coming up in the year in terms of powerlifting or any training sort of methodologies you're trying to use in this new year now that everyone is sort of coming back into the gym? That's a lot of
Um,
questions at once. I get that.
yeah, there was like 9 questions. I think for me personally, I said to a few people I wanted to try to read more. I used to read a ton, and not just like training, like just for like fiction too. And I haven't been doing that a lot recently, so I'm trying to be a little bit better about that. Um, so hopefully I'll finish my first book that I've started in a long time soon. So I guess that's good. I'm doing better with that. Um, we've seen some new faces at the gym. So the New Year's resolutions are definitely kicking in. Um, I've always said that we're not necessarily that kind of gym. But I think it's maybe a little bit in the fact that because we're more of a niche gym, I think people that come to us maybe we're already at a gym, but we're thinking about trying something different. They just haven't done it yet. Um, and then the New Year's resolution kind of kicks in, and they're like, you know what, let me actually try this. I don't think we get a lot of those like never been to the gym, let's go to the gym for the first time people. Um, but so we've seen a little bit of that. There's been some people coming in, so I think that's good. I think the difference for us is that we do a really good job of keeping people around. So the average person makes it about 3 weeks on the resolutions and it's over, so they'd be done by now. We kind of do a better job with that, so hopefully that keeps going. Um, Training, I guess, gets way more detailed. So I guess I'll let you guys kind of answer some stuff, and then we'll do there.
Yeah, I mean, what essentially when it comes to other than like your own personal motivations, like why is it do you feel that even though training is good for you, a lot of people feel good for like a long time while doing it, they reach like a point where they're like, ah, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I mean, obviously you can put time as a factor of just life gets busy, but if it's something that's like good for you or like that people really enjoy, it's kind of interesting to see how quickly that motivation dies in commercial gyms, not so much where we are.
Yeah, but I mean, even I think with us too, people want to try something different. The motivation does wane. I think it's one of the things I talk about all the time. Like motivation is this ever changing target, and you might be super motivated one day and then nothing the next, and we're trying to build a habit. It's nothing like the motivation is waning. But if you get in the habit of you know going to the gym and making it part of your day, then that's going to be the reason it lasts. If you're trying to do just on motivation, those are the people that burn out in 3 weeks. We want you to start slow, build that habit, keep coming in, and then it just becomes routine where you just keep doing it. And once it becomes routine, I think people start to understand like a lot of the days are just check the box kind of days. You come in, you do the work, and you go home. They're not anything special. They're not anything bad. They just are. And once you kind of understand that, it gets away from where like every day has got to be a good day. Like, that a lot, you see no bad days or no off days. I'm like, fuck off. Like everyone has bad days and off days. Let's maybe try to limit them. But it's also like when you have those great days, it's almost you're going to be followed up by a bad day. So I like to kind of think of just stringing along as many moderate days in a row as we can and build over time. So I think that's an important one. But yeah, the motivation, like, I don't know, motivation changes all the time. It's not even like day to day. It's like hour to hour. Like, so to when people get motivated to do something, that changes so fast. But if we can build that habit and keep it going, then it just becomes routine and you just kind of get up and do it. Because I think, like, especially for all kinds of training, once you get past like those beginner gains, and it's not as fun anymore because you're not seeing that improvement every day, and it's not as exciting because you maybe don't have a meet coming up or anything. Like, you're just putting in the work, and that's what it is. It's just you're putting in work to be better, and continuing that is hard. Like, it's way easier to sit at home and do nothing, but then you start to feel the effects of that too, and then getting back into it's even harder. So then it's just kind of a revolving cycle of shit. So if you can just kind of stay in it, is probably better off. Um, and hopefully we can help.
TV dreams.
Yeah.
There it is. There it is.
There were so many times you could have popped in and said it too.
I know.
I think that's what kind of I guess separates us from like the commercial gyms, or like an environment like ours is. It is we don't get as much burnout because I think people enjoy going to a gym where they don't, they see the same people. It's almost like part of your day, and we use the word like clock in, but like hopefully you don't think it's like a job that you hate, but it's easier to come and show up to clock in, sort of say, if the people around you are the same as every day, maybe you like them, maybe you don't, but it's like a familiar thing, part of your day, not like going to an overcrowded commercial gym where uh, motivation would wane very quickly, um, in my opinion, at least.
I think one of the things that, definitely Ryan has seen with me, but with a lot of athletes at this gym, I think we don't get demotivated to stop working out. We just get tired of doing the same thing. And especially because we're in a very repetitive sport, if you will. It's literally just three lifts over and over again. So when you reach a point of like, man, like I'm in a rut in training, like how how do you adjust, or like what do you guys do in terms of your training program where like we had a really good plan going, but they're losing motivation and need to adjust elsewhere?
I mean, we've talked about this before. Like, I think one of the things for me is I try to keep so much variety in the program to begin with, and maybe you just need even more variety. And that could be exercises, sets, reps, weight. It could be so many different options. I was showing someone today like all the different kind of goals that I would set for a lifter in particular. So, like, if you're looking to squat this, then I want I want you to front squat this and pause squat this and safety squat bar this and blah blah blah. And he asked me like where that those numbers came from. I said that's just from like me coaching a ton of people and looking at like where people go and trying to get like a generalized percentage. And now everyone's going to be a little bit different, but at least it gives more goals. So instead of thinking, well, this is my squat, bench, and deadlift goal, now you've got like 37 different style squat goals and like 35 bench ones and 25 deadlift ones. And I'll throw in some other ones like cardio and body weight stuff and things like that. Just so now like we don't have to focus on three things. We can hit so many more things, and we can take the main three that everyone focuses so regularly on and maybe move them to the back burner a little bit, and still be able to do some other things. So I think that keeps people going because it's especially when you've been doing it for a while, like you guys have, like it's those you're not hitting those PRs that regularly. They take a while to build. So when you're going weeks or months in between hitting PRs, what's going to keep you going? Like I said, like so the motivation's tough, but like the routine of doing it is what's going to keep you into it at least day to day. But then, like I said, maybe you can have a new goal and say, okay, well, instead of having my deadlift goal, I'm going to have this new one of I want to trap bar this, or I want to RDL this, or whatever. I want to do this many glute hams. It just gives you something else that you can at least focus on in the short term. And I have this argument with people all the time. Like, I'm not saying that those things are going to directly affect your big three, but I don't think getting better, stronger, leaner, faster, better at some other movement is just not going to help at all. It might have not have a direct carryover right now, but I think it's all going to help in the future. So for me, I love having all those different things that you guys can work on and and build towards that the big three instead of just doing the big three.
Yeah, I don't know how I mean, I'm biased because I've tended to train the way that we do, where we do lots of variations and in bars and different exercises that aren't just powerlifting. Um, but the people that just focus on comp lifts with technique and like rep PRs forever, I think that they're all serial killers because that's fucking crazy. Like I don't know how you can stay with one thing and have the tiniest little like thought or effect about something that you're doing when it's still the same thing you're doing over and over and over again. So for me, it blows my mind that people can stay, again, not motivated, but like stay training in the same few exercises consistently forever. And to me, that's one of the reasons people get burnt down and drop out. So um, it is
But I
nice
think
to
that's
have
part
those
of the
other. Go ahead.
I think that's part of the problem is that like the people that are doing that, like we're seeing, something where of like 60 to 70% of people do one meet and then don't compete again. Um, and we talked about that in one of the other episodes. Is like, well, what do we do then to change that? And I think one of the things is how do we keep people training for longer? And if training's boring, I mean, I know like I've said now a few times like I want it to be like a routine where you keep going, but I don't want the act of it being routine. Like I still want you to enjoy training and to push your training and to get better at training. The routine is that you're going and doing it all the time. And I was saying to someone before, like a squat is a squat, but like changing the bar can change the stimulus quite a bit. It can change the feel quite a bit, even though someone's like they were afraid. Well, if I safety squat bar for too long, like I'm going to forget how to squat. Well, first off, you are squatting. You're just using a different bar, so you're not going to forget how to squat. When you switch back to low bar, it might feel a little awkward for the first little while, but it's going to come back very quickly. You've been squatting the whole time. It's not like you just stop squatting. You're just doing something slightly different, but that slightly different is going to feel way different, like on your body. Like, if you're a 500 squatter, safety squat bar might be 440, might be hard as hell. Or if you're really bad at it, it might be way less. Um, so now it's like this, it's this new stimulus that you can work on. And again, now you've got that new goal of like, wow, I'm terrible at this. Let's build this up. And I don't think that's going to hurt when you go back to the main lift and go to squat again. And I don't think your squat's going to be suddenly so much worse because you didn't focus enough on the squat. I think you're going to be fine. It's the same thing like, for bench press. Like, I don't know if you're laying down and pressing your arms away from you, how much different is it going to be? Like if your hands are neutral instead of pronated because you're on a neutral grip bar instead of the regular barbell, like, are you forgetting how to barbell bench press? Like, no, you're doing the same thing. It's just slightly different, a slightly different stimulus, a slightly different intensity. Just and I think it keeps you going. I think it's fun. I don't know, but I also get bored as shit with this stuff. Um,
Well, I
like
mean,
you
if
said, like just squat, bench, and dead, and that's it. I would be out of my mind.
well, I mean, in that is there are there any exercises that either A, you've like learned about that you're like, well, I need to introduce this into my athletes, or like exercises that you're like, we used to do that a long time ago and then we
Hmm.
stopped, but I kind of want to bring that back.
Yeah, um, that happens a lot. I was actually to someone the other day that like glute ham raises, like when we got our first glute ham like 15 years ago from Elite FTS, like we were all crap at it. And then we all focused on it. And I mean, I made people do glute hams every day before, like as a warm up for their lower body lifts. And then even on upper body days, we would still do some. And we got to the point where most of us were like ripping off sets of 20 pretty easily. Um, and I got away from it because that small core that we were starting with got so good at them that we didn't really need them. We needed to do some other stuff. And then I gave them to someone recently and they got about a half a rep. And I was like, what was that? And they're like, these are so hard. And I was like, oh my God, I have not been giving these to like newer people because like, I think of the older people that have been doing it for so long that are good at them, and like, oh, we don't need them, but like the newer people do. So I started bringing in more glued hams, and trying to do it in a way that makes sure that the people aren't cheating them because everyone like really arches into it. So we're trying to do that a little bit more, and I think that's been super beneficial. Um, there's stuff that goes in and out all the time. There's stuff like I'll use the reverse hyper for a while and then I won't use it for a while, and like right now I'm not using it really at all. I think a couple people are doing single leg, but really no one's doing two leg reverse hyper right now. New stuff. I mean, we see new stuff all the time, and I'll if I see a new exercise, I'll go into the gym and when no one's around and I'll try it and see how hard it is. And if it's something that I think might be beneficial, then I give it to a couple people and see what they think. And then we start to kind of test it from there. So I don't ever just like throw it in like, oh, here's something new, have fun. Um, I like to try to get an idea. I also probably think about some of these things for way longer than I need to before I put them in. Um, I know before this we talked a little bit like just talking about tempo. Like, I mean, I'm on several of the podcasts saying that tempo's stupid. So I'm gonna state that I'm changing my mind. Um, and that was like one, that was I guess you could say it's a New Year's resolution too of trying to be more open. I always say that I'm a pretty open coach and I'm willing to try new things, but at the same time, I was like, no, this is stupid. So I'm trying to be better. So I introduced tempo to a few people, but I do it a little bit differently than what most coaches do. Most coaches control the eccentric and blast the concentric. I started doing eccentric and concentric tempo, so everyone hates my guts. That's really from listening to um, Peak Speak, the Australian podcast with John Sheridan and Thomas Lilly. Like they were talking about that, and I was like, "Ooh, that's a very different thought on I think the way you hear here." So like I wanted to try that, and I like almost instantly saw a couple really good things from the people that I was giving. I only gave it to like two people at the beginning, and I saw that like their inefficiencies on the lifts really would shine because they wanted to run away from them so bad that they would like race away from the tempo. And when I made them stay to the tempo, they had to drop the weight so much and control the movement um, that both of them very quickly hit PRs on the main lift that we were using the tempo for. Now, I'm not saying that they hit that because of the tempo. I think when you think about load management, like the tempo was just a way lower load. So they were getting a good stimulus because it felt hard, but they weren't loading the bar as much. They weren't as beat up. And I think that led to help, but also just them learning how to control some of the positions and be a little bit smarter through these movements and not have things go wrong and like try to race away from it, like just stay with it. I think that's been helpful. So I don't think it's like, oh my God, tempo's the magic thing now. Everyone's going to do it. But I've been pretty happy with it. And I think that also depends on the person though, because like if you're already tempoing your lifts, because we have a lot of people that are just slow lifters, like I'm not sure adding more tempo is going to do anything there, unless you're talking about speed.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that like the slower tempo, I've been pretty happy with that so far. I think we've seen some good things, and like I said, I mean, I've been saying for years how I think tempo is stupid. So this is a major change for me. And I think it threw a lot of people off because they like didn't know what I was talking about. And I'm like, no, seriously, we're trying tempo. So, we're pretty early into it, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think we're always looking for new things to do and bringing back old stuff too. Even just like we'll have conversation at the gym and someone will be like, "Oh yeah, we did this," and then that sparks a whole line of thought of like maybe that inspires the next 6 weeks of your program. Like there's a lot of things that I think we've done, and it's fortunate that we have so many people that at the gym that we all coach that like a lot of people are doing very similar things. So we have a pretty good size test pool of like things that we could figure work or if we just get rid of it. But yeah, I think I'm always looking for stuff. We're always talking about stuff. So there's always uh new exercises and new approaches and new things that make their way into programs and um I always like that. I always like even if it's something I feel is like stupid or something like, oh, this guy sucks, but that actually is kind of cool. Or like we done that all the time. Like this guy's terrible, but that's actually kind of cool. We'll take this. and just kind of extracting and making our own thing.
I guess like to that vein, is there other things that tempo being one of them where you were so adamantly like that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen, and then you were like, actually, hold on a second, there might be something there that like I didn't consider. Apart
I
from
think that
tempo,
happens
because
a
we're
lot.
beating that horse down.
Yeah, no, Tempo's definitely the new one. And like I said, it's still early, so we'll see. Maybe it's just, it might be the novel stimulus right now. It might actually be a waste of time, but right now it seems I'm pretty happy with it. Excuse me. No, it's weird because I'm always, as being very West Side influenced, like I'm cool with using all these different bars. Um, but mostly for lower body, I almost like forget about we have all these upper body bars. Like I've got like four different neutral grip bars. I've got three different bars that you could bench with a camber. No, four different bars you can bench with a camber too. We've got the thick bar. Like we've got I don't know. We've got slingshots. We've got boards. I've got like 15 variations for upper body just on like things like that. And I think a lot of times I forget about them. So I've been trying to be a little bit better about using more things and seeing what works and what doesn't work for people. I know like the extended range of motion bars, the camber bars. Um, we've got at the gym, we've got the Buffalo, the Duffalo, the Yukon, which are in that order, like are more of a camber, and then the actual like small camber bar, which is probably the most like a bench press, but it's got that big 5.5 inch camber in the middle. Um, I didn't usually use those a lot, especially because like the camber was like so much that you were limited on how much weight you could use. But I started playing around with it more and giving more people, um, like maybe to a board or if they were capable of doing a full range motion bench, and been pushing those a lot more. And I've always been someone who loves board work. I think board work is actually super helpful. I think a lot of raw lifters can get a lot out of it. They just don't want to use it. But I've been really happy with the extended range motion bars because, like, if you're if you're a raw lifter, I mean, everyone's gonna like people be like, "Oh, I'm weak off the chest. I'm weak in the midpoint. I'm weak at lockout." Like, no, you're probably just weak off the chest, and things get weird somewhere up along the line because like that's the mechanically weakest position. Because if you're weak at lockout, then when I do a 3 or 4 board press with you and you go 100 pounds over your max, is it really that you're weak at lockout, or is it something happening before that's causing the problem? And it's weird because like for squat, I'll have you do high bar, which extends range of motion. For deadlift, I'll have you do a deficit, and then for bench, it's just like, oh, we're just going to bench more. Um, and the problem is like, yeah, we can do close grip, but now it's a little bit of a different feel. We can do feet up, so you're not getting into as much of an arch, but it's not the same really. But now lately, like I said, I've been doing like get set like you normally would be use one of those camber bars and really kind of pushing that. And I think that's been super helpful. As people have been getting really like pretty strong on those camera bars, and then they go over to the bench and it feels easy. It feels like a board press because they've been pressing somewhere between 2 and 5 inches longer than normal. That now when they go to their chest, it's like, oh, this is great. Um, so that's something I'm pretty happy with too. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm mixing things all the time. I know like the Mars bar when I first saw it, I was interested. Wasn't super sure about it. I'm pretty happy with that. I think it's the best bar for good mornings. I think a lot of people just don't do good mornings, period. I think people are afraid of them. But the Mars bar good mornings feel great. You can load the crap out of them, but they really hit your hamstrings, glutes really well, and the low back not as taxing. I think it's also, a lot of people will go to. It's funny though, like a lot of people use the SSB as like a secondary lift, but then won't touch any of the other bars. And I ask them why not, and they literally just don't know what they are. And I'm like, well, maybe the SSB is the right bar for you, or maybe you're just using it because everyone else is. But maybe like the giant camera bar would be a better bar for you. I've seen a couple people at the gym that we've gotten that recently for the first time, and they're struggling. So that's a good one. And then the Mars bar, like I think it's a nice secondary bar because you take your upper body out of it a little bit. You don't have to worry about holding the weight as much, but you can still load it, if not exactly to your low bar, pretty damn close. Um, so if you're a little bit beat up, that bar can help a lot. And it just, it mimics the positions, I think, pretty well. Where SSB for a lot of people is going to be very different since most raw lifters are going low bar. So I think there's benefits to both. I think it just depends on where you are in the training cycle. And like I said, I'm just trying to be better about using all the things that we have available to us and not just getting stuck in using certain things.
I feel like there was one training cycle that we did where in the same week you had me giant camera bar squat, but then also earthquake bar bench like a couple days later. I felt so stable after that cycle of workout. It was the worst objectively. It felt awful the entire time. But like I think we are, at least as an athlete, I feel most comfortable in the things I do really well. So when you do give me things I hate, I'm like, I really don't want to do this.
Right. And I think that's like my job as a coach is to find those things that you're bad at and that you don't like and get you better at them. Not saying you have to be good at them, but you have to be better at them. And I think that will carry over to the stuff you're good at. And I've been saying today um, to someone else that, like, in the off season we work on your weaknesses, on the in season we work on your strengths. I'm not really, if you're a sumo deadlifter, I don't really care what your conventional is 4 weeks out from a meet, but I do want to build it 20 weeks out from a meet because I think it's going to help carry over to your other lifts. Um, the earthquake bar is another one that people are like, they hate it for no reason because they don't even know what it is. They just like, that's stupid. I'm not using that. I'm like, why don't you try it? Because, like, for someone like Tim who had pec tears going on over and over, when we found out it was mostly because he's had injured his labrum in the past and the pec was kind of trying to compensate and it was getting worse. And it would happen like every meet. And each time we got a little bit better, we get farther in the meet prep, and then, like, we're like, oh, we're gonna make it, and then it would happen again. We introduced the earthquake bar, and it hasn't happened since. Um, Hopefully that keeps up, but, like, I think that's been a huge help. It allows him to go, like, have a hard stimulus because, I mean, like, he's had sets of 5 on that where he's pushed to the brink, RP 9 or 10, but it's half the weight he uses normally, so it doesn't beat him up the same. And then the next day he'll be like, man, my shoulders, my lats, just are fried. And it's not so much like the pressing musculature necessarily, but I think he gets a lot out of it. I think a lot of people get a lot of it. Like you said, the giant camera bar, like, if you don't know how to brace, you're going to find out real fast. Like, I can teach you how to brace, or I can just put this bar on your back and say, squat it. Or I can say, squat it off a box, even worse. And then you try to lean forward off the box and come up, and the bar just throws you. And then you learn very quickly how to, like, brace and maintain positioning. And I think, like, if you can learn it on your own without being told, I think that's going to have a bigger benefit than me saying, do this, do this, do this. So if I can put you in a position with a bar or a movement that you're like, oh, now I know what to do, I think that's way more helpful.
I agree with that. I think I've always come to think, like, I don't know how people who are just constantly giving feedback and technique work on the main lifts, like, one, like, do you run out of shit to say? Like, what else? Like, at some point it's just like you just have to
How much
progress.
shit can you do wrong?
Right. And it's how many cue, like, I think the general idea, like, we think about is there's only so many cues that or directions or fixes that you can throw at someone for. It's just like nothing's gonna stick, or you're just throwing a million and confusing people. I've always thought that an exercise or a bar that makes you do something that addresses an issue or teaches you something without us having to explain in depth and hope it works, why wouldn't you just go with that? Like, if a chest fall in a squat, like same squat bar, we'll show you that in real time. So why avoid it?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say there's been times where you overhear in the gym someone asking advice on like, oh, it does my lift look a certain way, or I think I'm like hyperextending in a certain position. And there's been times where I mean I've seen both of you say, "We're like, no, you look fine." So I don't know if you guys notice that sometimes in the pursuit of like perfection for an athlete to be like, oh, I need to be perfect because that'll get me stronger, they miss out on like, I don't know if it's a dinosaur mentality, but the old school mentality of saying like, oh, I just need to get stronger, or I just need to do it in a way that makes me feel stronger without trying to mimic what it should be to be perfect.
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, there's something to be said for just being just dumb strong. Like it's going to help a lot. Um, but at the same time, I think you need to strive for great technique. I don't think you should go up there being like, well, my technique sucks. Who cares? I'm just strong. I think that's going to lead to many issues. Either lost pounds off the bar because you're not as efficient, or more fatigue built up because you're being put yourself into kind of bad positions, um, or an injury possibly happening because you're getting into something weird. I know that will is its own argument there. Um, but I think bad technique is something you need to work on. But I think there's this line of like we set this standard of like this is how we want you to lift. You kind of look like this, and then as the weight gets heavy, it's gonna change a little bit. Um, but the goal is then to find kind of that weight that it doesn't change and it looks good, and spend more time there and get good at that. So then when you go a little bit heavier, it doesn't break down until even more. So like you were squatting 200 kilos, like, well, now it doesn't break down until 202 instead of 197. Um, and we can kind of keep working our way up like that. And I think a great way to do that is, like I said, to use those other bars that are going to take whatever you do wrong and just amplify it so you can feel it. Um, we're talking about someone that benches with a really big elbow flare, and they just, we're trying to say like, okay, tuck your elbows, bring your elbows closer to your ribs, blah blah blah, and they just like it just didn't kind of click. Well, take this Swiss bar, which you physically can't flare your elbows. Do 10 reps of that. I'm like, you know where your elbows were on that one? They're like, yeah. I'm like, do that now with the straight bar. And like the next set, it was like, oh, there it is. I'm like, okay, now we got to find that like the right middle ground. But now it took one little thing with that for them to get it. And I said, I would rather do that than to just sit there and cue you for 5 hours. Um, but like I said too, like how much shit are you doing wrong? These are pretty simple movements. Like they're not, I always bring up baseball, but like, I don't know, squatting is way simpler than me throwing a baseball 60 feet, 6 inches and trying to hit a target. Um, the mechanics are way easier. So how much are you doing wrong? Like, yeah, I mean, I know things can be off, and then you have to work on them. But I mean, if it's off with the bar, if it's off with 35% of your max, then there's a problem. You need to take a step back and fix that. But once someone knows these basic things and they know how to squat, they know how to bench, they know how to deadlift, then they should be fine up until 70, 80, 90%. Like it should be fairly similar. And then once it gets up there, that's when you're going to start seeing the changes. But that's when you need to. That I said that's where you need to work. That's why I don't love like the really low RPE sets, because I don't think you're getting a lot of that working. I think and using the fatigue of a higher RPE set is going to help you get that working, because as you fatigue, things start to break down more. So now you can work on it. So like if you know that you're going to break down real hard on rep 7, do 6, um, but don't do 3. I don't know. I just don't like RP 5, 6. Um, I think you need to work harder to get a lot of that in, but you need to work smarter too. You can't just lift like shit, and like you can here and there, but it's not going to work in the long run. And like I said, I know a lot of people are arguing with me that like there's nothing more injurious about lifting a bad technique than good technique, and I just don't agree with that. Um, the idea of like with tissue tolerance and load management, all that, I said that's great, but like I think when you're in a bad position, the tissue has less tolerance because it's not doing what it should be doing. So then less load ends up being more damaging. So you have more issues. I don't see a lot of people like really get hurt in good positions. So I don't know.
I think
I'm
that
just making all this shit up.
I think I mean, like for both sides of the spectrum, it's so rare, I think, where we see someone who was just like, fuck technique, I'm just gonna like muscle this up. Like that is so rare in our sport, in our gym, just what I see. Um, I think it's the opposite side of the spectrum where people lie, where it's like they're never satisfied, or like some little thing was off, but they got the lift, but like it didn't count. It wasn't good enough. Like I think I see a lot more of that like neuroticism where it's like people strive for perfection in training,
Mm-hmm.
and they forget it's still training. Like it's just like I see it very often. I don't know if it's because of people obsessing with people they see on social media that are stronger than them or doing better than them, but it's I think for a while it's been people are obsessed with technique and almost like chasing a rabbit that's not there. It's like they don't, there's no prototype for what it needs to be. It's just they know it's not right. And it just seems like they're unhappy. And like, why are you doing this if you're just unhappy every day? But
But I think that's
Um,
like I said, that's where I think some people are. I think there are a lot of people that just are like, "Oh, just get strong, don't worry about it." But you're right. I think there's some people that like, if the bar is off by an inch in a single direction, like, well, I have to fix that. Well, like, do you have to, or is it like maybe that's just you? Maybe your internal anatomy, which we can't see, is a little bit different side to side. Maybe your left hip is just more rotated than the other one, so like it's going to put your foot in it a little bit different position. And that doesn't mean you're going to get hurt doing it. Doesn't mean that you need to fix it. That's just you. And I think like a lot of people kind of find their natural positions once they have the idea of like this is how the lift should occur. They kind of find what works for them very quickly. Like the way I teach a deadlift is not how I deadlift, but it's pretty damn close. Like my feet, I stand very narrow. Um, and most people would not go as narrow as I do, but I don't teach it like that. I start them with a slightly wider stance, and then like we start to play around and like what feels better. And if it feels better there, then like, yeah, okay, do that. But like you kind of start with the standard and then figure out what's the individual aspect of it from there. But you don't start from some weird spot or to nitpick certain things. I think that's the problem. I think some things are being like hyper focused on that don't matter. Um, and I think it's hard sometimes as a coach to be like, well, what does matter then? And that's, you know, I
no,
don't know. I
for
think you kind of have to have your standard of what a lift should be and what it should look like and how it works. And once you do that, then you can kind of go from there. But I'm not super worried about a lot of things that people ask me about. Um, I think as a powerlifter, you have to lift a standard, and like the rule says that you can lock out the bar unevenly, and it's still a good lockout. So as long as the bar doesn't dip, what's the problem if it's a little uneven? It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. It probably won't be once the weight gets heavy. And even if it is that going to make you a stronger bencher? Maybe, maybe not. So like I'm not super worried about that. But if you're flaring your elbows so hard off your chest that they're above your shoulders and your rotator cuffs are all jacked up because you're benching like shit, like that I'm gonna care about. So I think that's I want really good technique, but at the same time, I want you to not think about it. I want you, I want it to happen. And we could talk about it after the set. And I talk about that with weightlifting is like with weightlifting, I give so few cues because it's such a fast lift. It's like go do it, and afterwards it's like, well, this is what you did, so do this on the next one. But with powerlifting, you've got people that are yelling 9 things at you in the middle of a lift, and you're like, shut the hell up. I know, but and when the weight's super heavy, yeah, I know I'm supposed to lock my knees. I'm trying, but like maybe it's hard. But you know, I don't know. And when the weight's light, I think people need to focus a little bit more when it's lighter. Um, I think when it's heavier, they need to attack it as though they're going to do it and not be scared of it. But also treat it with the right standardization. Because like I said, like the ones I always get are like the short lockouts, the soft lockouts. I cut it high, but I'll get it on meet day. No, you didn't cut it high. You either weren't strong enough, so your body was like, oh shit, stand up, or you were afraid of the weight. If you don't cut it all the time and then you suddenly cut it, you didn't choose to cut it. It just happened. It was too late. You couldn't fix that. So figure it out. Get stronger. Be less afraid of it. You got to figure out what it is. But it's not like you're just gonna be like, oh, it'll be there on meet day. No, it won't be. You're gonna squat it high.
that phenomenon of not phenomenon, but like we've talked so much about how at meets it blows my mind when a coach or a handler or someone will like list off like 10 things before they go perform the one rep of the one thing. Like it's gonna help where like let me walk you through the entire thing you're about to do and give you technique,
Yeah,
things to think about. Go do it in front of a crowd.
yeah. On meet day, that should be the last thing. If you don't know that stuff already, then it's too late.
Yeah.
Go stand up. Push the bar away from you. Great job.
Yes.
if you're trying to teach the person how to do the movement in that moment, it's way too late.
Yeah.
Luke was making fun of me today because they said, like, when we did his weightlifting meet, the cue I gave him before every lift was pull hard, pull harder, pull the shit out of it. I wasn't like, do this with your elbows and do this with your feet. I literally was just like, go up there and pull it fucking hard. And he went 6 for 6. So fantastic. Like, I think the same thing with powerlifting. It's like, you know what to do. Like, go do it. Maybe it's like the one thing that they need to work on. But like, again, if we did it in training, hopefully it's going to be there. And then, on that PR attempt, like, that's where it's going to break down. But hopefully we did a good enough job that they can fight through it. And we gave them the right stuff that they know how to get through it. But it's not like if everything looks perfect on meet day, you went 9 for 9, 27 white lights, and all your reps were just perfection. Probably didn't try that hard. And I don't really understand why you're doing this. Like,
Yeah,
try
the goal
harder.
is to go 3 for nothing.
Yes. Open with a max. Hope for the best.
Achieve your dreams.
No, you no longer achieve
Sorry,
your
wrong,
dreams.
wrong, wrong.
This is not a place to achieve your dreams. Well, I mean, I've like during that whole spiel he gave, it got me. I really want to ask a really dumb question. Are there things that you want to say to athletes, but like as a coach, you're like, ah, man, I need to be somewhat professional here. It's
I mean,
Yeah.
you guys know full well who you're talking to, so that's not the case for me.
Yeah.
I know I've had other coaches be like, "Whoa, I can't believe you do that." I'm like, it is what it is. Like, there's a line, don't cross it, but like you can push it. And everyone's line is different, so you got to know what the line is. Like, I'll say something different to you than I will to some other people, but like, sometimes the hard truth is what you need to hear. And maybe you need it in a way that is not sugar coated.
well, I mean, that's true. But is there anything that you guys are sort of looking forward to in terms of like this 2024 year at Gleason performance training, programming wise, event wise, life wise? I don't know.
I'm just really looking forward to achieving my dreams,
There you go.
personally. But
We don't do that here. Gleason
oh,
performance
sorry,
training
sorry,
no
sorry.
longer,
Hey,
no longer a place to achieve dreams.
sorry.
I mean, I'll give a real, like, the USAPL Connecticut State Championships, since this will get posted next week. Those are March 16th and maybe 17th, depending on how many people sign up. I'm super pumped about that one. We put
Spots are going fast.
we put a dots QT on that this year. And some people were like, "Oh, it's not that high," and I'm like, "Really?" Because I just cut half the state out in one swipe. So it might not be high for someone who's very good, but for most lifters, it's a tough number to hit. So that pushed a lot of people out. I'm pretty happy about that, of having it be more like a true state championship, where like if you're there, it's because you really earned getting there. And my plan is each year to do this is to up that QT even higher until we get to the point where like maybe we only have the top 3 to 5 lifters in a weight class doing states, and like it's the whole meet is prime time basically. People ask me about this one. I don't know if we're gonna do prime time this year because everyone's so much better. I don't necessarily want to split people up. The cool one, which I think we're gonna try to do maybe a podcast with, is that we've got like 1,100-kilo guys, which is crazy because you almost never get that many. But like 7 of the 11, I think it is, are like gonna take a shot at qualifying for nationals. It's like 9 or 10 of the 11 are going to take a shot at dots. Hitting dots is a dot score over 400. And then there's like 6 maybe that are trying to hit a dot score like over 450. All in one meet at the same, in Connecticut. I think that's awesome. So I'm super pumped about that meet. And then, we've got, we talked about, I think, one of the other ones, we get the Rising Tide meet in New Jersey. We've got Leah and Stephanie going to that one. That should be pretty cool. Nationals was a little bit of a weird thing. So for those of you that know that, like USAPL Raw Nationals, really almost none of our team got in, even though a bunch of people qualified. I think we only have 3 signed up right now out of the like 20 that qualified. Um, so that's going to be different this year. That's not really going to be a big part of what we're doing. But I'm trying to, maybe we can figure out something for Connecticut in the meantime too. So I mean, I guess that's a bit like I'm there's more, but like at least on the horizon, that's the stuff that's coming up for me that I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any, I don't have any goals, any aspirations, anything I'm excited about.
God damn it, Brian. How are you supposed to achieve your dreams?
That's true. I don't know. Just keep trying.